Hey everybody, welcome to Stuff Sketched with Gregg Schigiel. I am Gregg Schigiel, and on today's episode, I am drawing Wolverine. What you're seeing right now is some very quick, highly sped up sketching. So in this instance, I tried doing some sketches smaller. Sometimes it helps me get the pose and the image I'm looking for. So that's what's happening here, and then in the next phase where I start actually drawing it slows down a little bit to what you're seeing now. Why am I drawing Wolverine? This is a result of an email I got from somebody. Somebody emailed me through my website, and they are somebody who first saw my work way back when in the year 2000, so 20 years ago. They saw stuff I did, a Spider-Man story I drew way back then, and in the email they asked if I had any drawings of Wolverine. So I thought, I will do a drawing of Wolverine, and that's what's happening here. The overall drawing took a little over an hour from initial sketching to final color. So this one's going to be in full color. I usually put this stuff in the description below, so I don't know why I'm explaining it now. Wolverine, pretty popular character. I don't know if he's as popular as he was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, he was basically, I don't know, the equivalent of what I guess Deadpool might be now. Just like, he was the biggest thing going. He was the best there is at what he did. I don't even know if that terminology is still relevant. But that was sort of one of his catchphrases when he was introduced. He'd say, I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do is blah blah blah. So right here I'm blocking in the pencil drawing, and this actually happens in this particular piece in three waves. Well, four if you count the sketching at the beginning. But I do a lot of blocking in and figuring out the shapes of things and how they fit. So this arm I redraw a few times. And this goes back to something I've said in past videos and say all the time, which is drawing. I equated a lot to cooking, specifically baking. And a lot of what I'm doing now is the equivalent in baking of getting your ingredients ready, measuring them, prepping them, mixing them properly, like doing all the things before the item even gets baked. So now, once I've sorted all that out, this is arguably the baking process. This is the tighter pencils. This what I'm drawing now is what the inks will be based on, and from there I'll color it and that sort of thing. As I see myself drawing the mask, it makes me think of the different versions of Wolverine that have existed and the kinds of ones that influence the way I have drawn him in the past. Maybe not this particular drawing, but the way I approach the mask portion is absolutely closer to Alan Davis, one of my comic book artist influences, heroes. The claws I'm drawing, I don't know if it's debate, but there's a lot of discussion as to whether the claws are spiked, if they're like swords. Frank Miller drew them like little samurai swords. John Byrne drew them like spikes. Alan Davis draws them, if I remember correctly, like spikes. I've not looked at an Alan Davis Wolverine. The distinguishing thing of an Alan Davis Wolverine for me is the mask and the complete roundness of it. But anyway, I went with spikes because I don't know. I think they look. I mean, they all look cool. Let's face it. Part of what makes Wolverine rad is he looks cool. He's got these claws that come out of his hand. But I go with the spikes. Ish. I think they maybe. Yeah, you'll see. I mean, they're like knives. Yeah, just like that. So this is inking. Now I'm satisfied with the pencil drawing, and now I'm going in and inking it. And the costume I have chosen to draw, and this will become much more apparent in the color, is the costume I grew up knowing as Wolverine's costume. The popular costume of the 1980s, certainly. And that's the brown and yellow, or brown and orange, or brown and gold. I think brown and orange is probably the best color descriptor. But it is funny to think about it, because that is probably the costume he's worn the least. That, or maybe the patch identity that he had in his ongoing series at one point, which was just like a black sleeveless unitard with weird cross-hatching over his face. But I'm going with brown and orange, which for me is classic Wolverine. For most people, it's probably a blip on the radar. but when I see this costume, it is it feels like home. Is that a that's ridiculous? Um, but it was the costume he was wearing during a comic series called Secret Wars. It was the action figure had this costume, and again, it's the costume I know and am most nostalgic slash fond of. Um, yeah, and the inking I'm doing is it's how I've been approaching some of my superhero drawings. If you saw my Batman and the Outsiders drawing, I'm having a lot of fun just sort of slapping down sort of chunky lines and really leaning into the cartooniness of some of the drawing, not sweating the quote unquote realisticness of anything. So this Wolverine, the foreshortening on that foreground hand is huge. That back leg is tiny. He's got the big square lantern jaw, that sort of thing. Wolverine is traditionally a hairy little runt of a dude, so giving him a lot of hair on his arms. Definitely know that this was in sort of in classic drawings of Wolverine, at least again classic to my eye. John Byrne, Art Adams, that kind of thing. He always had the sort of stubbly, hairy arms. He's a little dude. I think, what is he, 5'2", something like that? 5'4"? I can't remember. Should have looked that up. And now I'm dropping in just a simple background of some rock formations and trees. A nod to Wolverine's Canadian wilderness origins. His first appearance in an issue of Hulk, he comes leaping out of the woods to attack. And now it's the coloring portion. I sped this up a little bit. This is just laying in basic flat colors. It can get a little boring. I mean, it's boring to do it, at least for me. So I figured watching it is especially boring. So I sped this up a little bit faster than the actual drawing part. Makes for a quicker video too. But now you'll see the actual colors of this Wolverine costume. If you're not familiar with this particular color combination, if you only know the Wolverine in blue and yellow, or Wolverine from the movies where he's all black, this is what Wolverine looked like when I was a kid. And then I decide that this sky is too bright. I want a nighttime scene. And then from this point now, it's about creating shadows and form and giving things a little more depth. And with this, I approached it in a similar way, just big, chunky, hard-cut shadows. It's a look that I like. Other people like to do things with a lot of airbrushing and sort of making things look, I don't know what's 3D is not the word, but I think the way stuff looks when it has like gradients and smooth edges and that kind of a thing. And I'm a fan of, I like animation. I like the look of classic cell animation, so I think that's why the coloring in this style appeals to me. It feels like a cartoon / comic when I look at it. My brain, whatever synapses click to make me think comic or cartoon, that's what happens. And at this point I was figuring out the shadows on the arms, and at some point I determined I don't even like the coloring on the arms. So I think that happens soon. I record these after I've drawn it, so I'm remembering things as I look back. But it's fun to draw. I haven't drawn Wolverine in a really long time, so this was a fun treat. So I thank the email writer named Josh for putting the idea in my head. Every now and again, I'm not sure what to draw on these, and I'm always happy to hear suggestions. So if you have suggestions, you let me know what they are. Whether it's something to draw or a topic about drawing to talk about, or whatever, I can try and do it. No guarantees, but it has happened in the past. Somebody asked how to draw hair, how to do faces, things like that. Um, if I could do it in a video that's 15 minutes or less, there's a good chance I'll do it. Unless I have some other idea that pops into my head. And then I'm just laying in some extra stuff in the background. A little bit of texture, a little bit of gradient. And that's about it. That's the drawing. So I'm about to sign it now, and that's about all the stuff I have left to say. I'll see you next time.